Between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Parker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Power Max Super Touring Championship, powered by VRRC. It's been a little minute since we've been here. We had a week off last week thanks to those pesky storms causing potential power cuts out there, but we're back here tonight and at Silverstone, so we haven't missed a round. We've just delayed it, so this is the penultimate round of the championship still. My name is Jack Oliphant, and I'm joined as ever in the virtual commentary box by Dave Marshall. Dave, how the devil are you?
Yeah, doing rather well. As you said, we took a week off, and I'm pleased you started because I tell you what, it could take a little while to just get back into the flow of it. Just having a week off really messes things around a bit. But yeah, really looking forward to it. And as you say, penultimate round here at Silverstone National, you see, with Zanettacci still left to go. And I tell you what, with the times as close as it is, Jack, well, I think we're in for a real treat tonight.
We are indeed, and speaking of the introduction, I did actually almost call it the Academy, but we managed to bypass that one. Obviously, that finished last week. However, you're absolutely right. Times are nice and close, and you can see that 7th of December. It's no longer the 7th of December, it's the 14th, but we are at Silverstone National as the penultimate round of the Super Touring Championship. We've got two classes, gold and silver, and of course, next week, we're still on course for the finale, Brands Hatch GP. We're a touch closer to Christmas than maybe we thought when we started this championship, but that doesn't matter. People want to race any time of the year, and I want to be covering it any time of the year as well. If we're talking about last round, I was going to say last week, Oulton Park Island, we saw Jack Smith turn up to the party. Now he switched over to the Volvo, and the Smart 5 car took home all the points, basically. Jordan Brennan came in second place with Mark Fletcher in third, and driver of the round was actually ended up being Jack Smith as well, for the fact that he just turned up sort of out of nowhere really after struggling a little bit with the BMW, switched to the Volvo, and now he's really pushing on strong. That is the gold category, but of course we've got two categories here with the Super Touring. We've got the silver as well, and Oulton Park saw Paul Zanettacci really come to the floor, and he took home the most amount of points, and we'll also see potential championship lead. Nicky Taylor in second place, and Mick Sutton in third, the driver of the round, as we mentioned before. Still Jack Smith, as we only named one. But one driver that you probably worth noting that isn't there, Dave, is Carl Belvis. Had a little bit of an upset week last week, both in the last round, both in the Academy and the Super Touring.
Yeah, a little bit of a difficult week, as you see it in both. Another driver that also seemed to struggle was actually Jordan Brennan, just not maybe quite finding his form, maybe seeing the likes of Jack Smith come in and, you know, really battling for that top place. But it was a really rare error that we saw from in Oulton Park, going through one of the chicanes, just clipped one of them tyre walls, and that really brought that Mark Fletcher into the picture, and that was really the start of that damage. So let's see whether, you know, week off, fresh start here at Silverstone National, whether he can pick his head back up and continue his championship run, because I imagine things like that really plays on your head.
Can indeed, but we got to obviously talk about what these guys are actually racing for. Let's have a look at the prizes for the Super Touring, and you can see at the bottom of your screen there a pair of pardon me. A set of OBP hydraulic pedals for both silver and gold victors. 2 BTCC VIP hospitality supplied by PowerMax for next year is the second place prize for both classes. And the third place for both classes is a Riggs Sim Race 3 chassis. A really fantastic prize, really. And actually, we were just talking about this with our broadcaster, Tom, as well, wondering where on earth I could fit one into my office, because he's got one set up in his office, and it looks mega. The driver of the round every single week gets a PowerMax car valeting kit as well, and obviously live broadcast with me and Dave, and of course Tom on the broadcast. Now, championship-wise, we've obviously seen what these drivers are racing for, but I can believe we can just about bring up, that's a little bit of what we see, there we go, in the terms of live timing. Let's see if we can have a quick look at the championship in just a few seconds, but Oulton Brennan, you can see actually putting in some early lap times there on the qualifying board at the moment. And Tom Dadswell actually as well pushing on strong. We only had about 2 or 3 minutes into qualifying, so it's unlikely that we'll be able to, it's unlikely that those will be the final finishing positions. But I think what might be easier is if we go back to the championships in a couple of minutes, Dave. Why don't we have a quick look at a hot lap around Silverstone?
So here we are at Silverstone National for the penultimate round of the PowerMax Super Touring Car Championship, powered by VRRC. Difficult turn one, always about commitment, but make sure not to go too late on in the brakes, because then you struggle to get back to first. It's all about momentum, braking early. You think for this right-hander, rolling off the brake and allowing that diff to open up, get on the power and get really good drive onto the club straight here. Best overtaking opportunity for tracks, a super crucial corner, getting that slipstream and possibly for a good move down into Brooklands. Open the corner up, lose the curve on the inside, get the car as straight on brakes as possible, turn towards the apex, and then you've got to be careful of Lovefield. Car very loose on the back end, you can see, just trying to rotate around on them, but actually works brilliantly for the exit. Get on the power and then hug and close white line all the way at the end. Make sure you tune in on Tuesday night from 7:30 on VRRC's Facebook and YouTube page.
And just like that, we can now start having a look at the championship there. A little bit of a technical issue, but we'll get on to what you saw in a couple of minutes, actually, because it is quite interesting. It's something we've never spoken about before. However, this is what we can speak about now, and it is the championships. You're looking at mostly the gold here, with Oulton Brennan on top, 147 points, 10 points ahead of Mark Fletcher, of course, for Altitude eSports. Fletcher gaining a little bit of pace in this sort of back half of the season, and Dadswell, who I can tell you right now, is putting on some strong laps here at Silverstone. He's in third, a fair old way behind, but you never know. This is racing at the end of the day. There could be a safety car and potentially let all the back markers through, and all of a sudden the championship could change. You never know. Scott Bugner in fourth, with Ashley Beard in fifth, and then you can obviously see the rest of the gold standings there with a few penalty points hitting about the place. Silver is where it's probably getting a little bit more tasty, to be honest. Paul Zanettacci with 145 points has pulled ahead of Carl Felbers. Like we mentioned earlier, he didn't quite have the round that he was hoping for a couple of weeks ago. Nicky Taylor, who is our Academy champion, is in third place here in the Super Touring. Paul Zanettacci actually didn't do so well in the Academy, but he's pushing on strong here in the Super Touring. Carl Felbers came second in the Academy, currently second in the Super Touring. I'm sure he'll probably want to do one better on at least one of these championships. Thorne in fourth place, Regan is currently sitting in fifth. That's a very close battle for fourth position. 75 points and 72 points respectively. And a nice close battle for Mick Sutton and Luke Weston as well, only separated by a point between 6th and 7th. And you can see the rest of the drivers cascading down into 12th. But I think it's about that time, Dave, that we start having a look at the actual live timing and what we see in front of us. In fact, there we go. With 9 minutes to go, this is the live timing we get to see, Dave, isn't it? It's ran by a different website, so obviously what we see on the game, we call out, but sometimes we say, oh, well, what on our timing screen, it says differently, and this is the timing screen we get to see.
Yeah, so as you can see, it's quite self-explanatory, but basically we can see what current lap the drivers are on, and this is how we know basically when to get excited. When a driver, which would be brilliant if one does one right now, but I don't think they're going to, put in a purple block in that current lap time, we know they have gone the fastest first sector out of anyone. When they go green, that's beat their PB, and when it's orange, it hasn't matched the PB or it's worse. So that is very much where we are at. And then obviously we know they're on an extremely good lap if they go double purple jack. So yeah, you can see last lap times, best lap times, and the current best lap that they've done. So we get as much information as we can, but it allows us to also keep really as much ahead of the race as we can possibly be.
And just before we go over to watching the cars go, in fact, we can go over to watching the cars go round, I suppose, Dave, and still carry on talking about it, because watching the cars is probably a touch more entertaining than watching just a timing screen. But that's actually ran through a website that VRRC actually run, and we use it to basically run our championships as well. So any old championship, we can go back and have a look at all the previous race winners and everything like that, can't we? It's all stored and ran on that particular site.
Yeah, it is indeed. So we use an external company to basically help run our servers and our championship pages, and an absolute fantastic company, and it, you know, fantastic structure to the website that really helps us run it as efficiently as possible. And as you can see, gives us all the data that we need for not only live commentary but also our aftercare regarding our championships, putting penalty points in, adding ballast, anything like that is all done through the same bit of software. Also makes it super easy for sign up. So make sure you go over to our Discord, get involved, and see what you can get involved with.
Yeah, that's absolutely crucial as well, because there is a new year coming and there's plenty of new championships they've been announced, and we'll talk about them a little later on. I'm sure Rich Hayden will jump in right at the end to tell us all about them, basically. But we need to do our job, Dave. We need to actually talk to the ladies and gentlemen about actually what's happening in front of us now. With all that kerfuffle out the way now, we can safely say that Robin Walters, yes, that's right, the silver driver Robin Walters, is currently setting the times at the moment. Jordan Brennan's done well. He's recovered, I would say, because he was down in 5th or so. He's up to 2nd place. Dadswell, who is performing strong, in 3rd. Smith in 4th, Fletcher in 5th. Now, normally, those 4 drivers, we're talking about the top 4. But Robin Walters is really throwing the cat amongst the pigeons here.
Yeah, he really has. A 57 flat is an absolute astonishing time. It just really seems to be either hooked up with the car. Obviously, he was a relatively newcomer, only came in for Oulton Park last round out. A really difficult track to try and bed the car in. Very technical. Here at Silverstone, it's a little less demanding on car setup, but I tell you what an absolute stunning job he is. And I tell you what, he's definitely a driver who is looking like he's going into gold class next season. He's already proved himself in the academy. He's jumped straight in out the academy in them Clios after doing very well in it, may I add, but gone in, done Super Touring, and here at Silverstone is currently sat provisional pole, which absolutely phenomenal job, regardless of it being silver or gold. Phenomenal job driving.
Yeah, and if anybody's wondering how we sort of separate the gold and silver, VRRC have pulled in a quite sophisticated system, haven't they? Well, I think you're part of it, to be honest, Dave, of how to gather all the information about how safe drivers are, how they performed, their qualifying, fastest laps, consistencies, trophies, all that sort of thing, and pulled it into essentially a spreadsheet and somehow come out with an end figure that basically dictates driver rankings. And it's all mind-boggling stuff, but it's quite crucial for what we do here.
Yeah, so luckily for me, Rich, the race director and the owner of VRRC, is very nifty with spreadsheets indeed. So he's managed to create this absolute mind-boggling spreadsheet that, yeah, basically we input all of our data from every single race that we do here at VRRC, and it basically comes out with a driver rating, exactly like it does on, dare I say, the likes of iRacing and also on the newer versions of Assetto Corsa. You know, it's not heard of on the original Assetto Corsa, so we just thought any drivers who come through our doors and get behind the wheel in VRRC can also get themselves on the board and start to build up that driver ranking. But also, secondly, it really helps us build divisions within our race, meaning that there isn't drivers feeling that they're versing drivers that are of a higher standard and feeling like they're not competitive at all. So yeah, really just trying to make it as nice and as even and as enjoyable a race as possible.
Robin Walters putting a green sector 1, but we're looking at Thorne here as he comes across the line. Was in 13th, I think it remained 13th. Walters just having a look where he's rocking up from. This is Will Powell as well, who I think was on a slightly quicker lap. He's quicker in sector 1. How's his sector 2 come about? In fact, I think remained in 9th position as well. I think I've just been caught out, actually. I thought there were 3 sectors to this track. There were only 2. So when I said there's a quick sector 2, that's the end of the lap. They're not going to do any better than that. So Robin Walters at the moment is obviously top silver and top of the timing. Then we've got a couple of gold drivers, but the next silver you really need to talk about, I suppose, is Paul Zanettacci, who's currently in 6th place. Ashley Beard separates himself from Kyle Felvers at the moment as well. So silvers are getting a little bit more spread out. We thought maybe going into the championship that there would be a block of golds covering the top 7, but then a block of silver the rest of the field. But as we've gone further and further in, Dave, it's sort of melded into one, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to you, Silverstone National always is a little bit of one of these tracks. It's always a little bit jumbled. Slipstream and track position plays an absolutely huge part here. If you've got a driver on an outlap, even him just going down the back straight, warming his tyres, getting himself ready for the following lap, if you find yourself coming round onto that back straight and you're tucked in behind him, that is a good 2/10 worth of slipstream you'll get going down towards Brooklyn. So it can all just be whether or not it all falls for you. And clearly, I'm not saying Robin Walters has got slipstream to do that lap, but he has definitely got it hooked up and found himself some space on this grid.
You're absolutely right when you're talking about Silverstone National, obviously. And I'm a bit tentative to ask this, Dave, because I think I sort of know the answer roughly. But have you had good memories? I remember you actually raced here this season, didn't you, in the minis? And I don't want to talk about the aftermath, but you enjoyed the first race, didn't you, at least? Was it the second race? I can't remember now. I don't think it really went well for you either time, did it?
Right, so Silverstone National for me was a good track to race on. It was, one that I could really rely on the racecraft, and I knew I would get up to pace reasonably quickly with it only being about 4 corners. Unfortunately, Carl Gremlins basically ruled us out of actually basically doing reasonably well. We were P3 on the grid in race 3 and then ended up with a dinted door and about 20 horsepower down, which with a 100 horsepower mini isn't brilliant. But you're right, the first 2 races actually didn't go too badly at all, and it really highlighted in real life how much the slipstream is worth around here and how much time can be lost if you start to battle 2 or 3 cars going into a corner, which is really quite common at Silverstone. If you've got a group in front of you that are working together, they can open nearly half a second a lap just based on around you battling super hard behind. So it's really key here for any drivers that want a serious chance to help pull away is to work with the drivers around you and not just battle straight away. So yeah, a very, very difficult track regarding racecraft, not actually that difficult regarding driving.
No, that's why we're seeing such close times, isn't it? And close times is what we're seeing. It's quite amazing, really. I mean, the top 6 separated by less than 0.2 of a second. We've had a couple of green sectors been flying about on that previous lap. We're actually on board with Ashley Beard, who decides that going around the track is a bit overrated, and he wants to park himself in the left-hand side safety road. That's why he's got a red mark next to his name now on the 7th place board. Sorry, 7th place on the timing board. Mick Sutton is in the top 10. Just having a look, how is Mick Sutton getting on this lap? It was green sector 1 last time out. He's hunkered himself up nicely in the slipstream. And we're talking about, obviously, a track with minuscule margins, as Robin Walters can't do no more. He's crossed the checkered flag. Mark Fletcher has as well. Now Jordan Brennan has. So it's only Tom Dadswell that can really upset Robin Walters here for taking a maiden pole position. And obviously, we'll have a nice chat to a very happy Robin, I'm sure. He's always happy to come in for a chat before, so I'm sure he will now. And that's Mick Sutton.
You might be on the lap here.
Yeah, that's Mick Sutton coming into the lap. But here comes Paul Zanettacci, as you said, in 6th place at the moment. And he's on green sector 1. He's the only driver left to pretty much finish a good lap. He hasn't ran all the way out wide, and he's into 5th place ahead of Smith. Smith, after doing so well at Oulton Park, ends up qualifying in 6th position as everybody crosses the line for the checkered flag. And that is Robin Walters on pole, Jordan Brennan alongside him, Dadswell, Fletcher, the Altitude eSports drivers, on the 2nd row of the grid. Then Zanettacci just pipping Smith, but that is going to be one hell of a race. Can't wait for it. But first, we need to have a chat to Robin Walters.
Yeah, we will indeed. And Robin Walters, what can we say? A silver driver putting it pole in our overall touring car league after coming out of a very successful academy. I mean, what can you say? Phenomenal lap there, Robin. One of them where it was just hooked up, but every lap seemed relatively competitive.
Yeah, I think that's probably the first thing I would say, actually, that I was quite surprised at how consistent the pace was in qualifying.
Yeah.
I was doing sort of zeros and ones and twos, maybe most of the laps, but I confess I feel like a bit of an imposter coming in this late in the season and sticking it on the front row, so yeah, I almost feel like I'm getting involved in something I shouldn't be.
I would say absolutely not, Robin. Go out there, enjoy it, and get involved. At the end of the day, the amount of championship points you're behind, it's not going to make that much difference to the other drivers. Remember, they are competing in a different class to you, so don't worry. You've done an excellent job putting it there on pole. I take it it's just you gelling a little bit with the car, but also the track maybe helps a little bit. We didn't see quite this sort of speed at Oulton Park, so is it one of them where you're just really clicking with the track as well?
Yeah, possibly so. I mean, it's not a favourite of mine at all, and I don't feel like I'm pedalling all that quick. But there must be something going on. I must click with it on some level. But yeah, it's to be fair, I've done a fair bit of practice this week as well, and I think that's paid off. So yeah.
Well, I'm quite astonished that you managed to go pole overall, Robin. An absolute phenomenal job out there in the Volvo, and really looking forward to seeing how you can get this thing off the line and pedal your way to the end of race one.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks, Dave.
Cheers.
That's Robin Walters claiming that he doesn't actually know this track very well, or it's not one of his favourite tracks, which I think is absolute rubbish. I'll look to that qualifying session. Anyway, before we get in to see how he gets on, we obviously have to have a quick look at our sponsors' adverts. So we'll be back in a couple of seconds.
At SmartFi, we do things differently. It starts with our 100% buyback guarantee. When you buy SmartFi token on the Smart Portal and hold it for a year or more, we'll buy back your token at the price you paid for any reason under the sun. You can borrow cash with our collateralized crypto loans or earn up to 13% interest on your holdings. SmartFi unleashes the true potential of cryptocurrencies. And there are so many reasons now more than ever to get involved. Join us today at smartfi.com. Grow your wealth and secure your future with simple, smart, and safe finance.
And a big thank you to SmartFi and obviously all of the sponsors that you can see flying around your screen as the stream goes forward. And, well, Robin Walters on pole, Dave, something we didn't expect to see. Jordan Brennan, though, Dadswell, Fletcher, and Zanettacci and Smith round out the top 6. We saw some epic battles at Oulton Park, a completely different circuit that you've already alluded to already tonight. Different challenge. But it's nice and wide. I wouldn't expect as much chaos as maybe we would expect at Oulton Park. But to be fair, Oulton Park, I don't think we got that much chaos.
I'm going to call it now. I think we're going to have more.
No, okay, fair enough. We shouldn't have it, but we will. That's yeah, your theory.
You know what it's like. You go to a British touring car meeting at Silverstone National, and it just feels, because the track is that wide, because the slipstream's that big, and because the braking areas, as I said, that wide and open into corners, you just end up with drivers going 2, 3, 4, even 5 cars wide at times. And that is, as we've seen, Thruxton springs to mind. 4 cars into one corner doesn't go and can have huge, disasters basically regarding the championship. So let's see what happens. Luckily, I've just spotted, I believe he is here, Bugner was really struggling. He was stuck at work, and he's managed to get on the grid for race 1. So he's starting back in P18. So let's see how Bugner also pulls his way back through the grid.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Not sure if he will start on the grid or whether he'll have to start in the pit lane. But no, he's actually got himself on the grid. Yeah, no, he's actually got himself there. So fair play to Scott Bugner. Welcome to him. Hopefully, it doesn't end up in a big crash after all that stress of trying to get back in time. But obviously, we'll keep an eye on how he gets on with pretty much 0 practice this evening, at least anyway. Going down into T1, Dave. Actually, we've already got about 15 seconds. I'll ask you for race 2, maybe. With the 10 seconds left to go, we obviously have to think about what these drivers' tactics are going to be, whether they're going to go pedal to the metal or whether they're going to conserve themselves for that full reverse grid. But as the engine notes rise, the lights are coming on, and we will be racing for the first time here on a Tuesday evening on the Power Max Super Touring Championship. Robin Walters gets a decent start ahead of Jordan Brennan, but it's not good enough to cover off Jordan Brennan, who sweeps into the lead as Altitude Esports flies into second and third as well. And who has that fallen off the back of the grid? It's Scott Thorpe, I believe. Paul Laramie down into 19th position as well. Has had a little bit of an upset, but Scott Bugner's all the way up into, what is that? Is that 13th position? That's absolutely incredible. Smith into 8th place with Ashley Beard swapping positions now as well. But there is obviously the big movers and shakers at the front of the field. But we'll get to that in a second because there's a driver flying on the right-hand side there, and that is Phil Regan.
Yeah, Phil Regan getting shot off right there, and already imagine that had to be a tap. That was too aggressive for that to be a little bit of snap oversteer. You can see Will Powell has got his way up into 7th place here. Tucked right in behind Paul Zanettacci. You can see just getting a little nibble there on the inside. He knows there's a driver right on the inside of him now. In fact, he isn't. He's not. The driver that was to the right managed to tuck in. He hasn't defended the inside line the first corner. I bet he's probably thinking there, if someone's going to dive him there, it's not going to end up that well. But I tell you what, Brad Smith has read that well. He's braked a little bit, he's tucked back, and has he got this undercut going down towards 2? Meanwhile, just up in front, look at that, that's Jack Smith battling with Paul Zanettacci. Will Powell goes a little bit deep, but he will get a good cutback and a good run down towards Brooklands. Nicky Taylor is looking all over this.
Yeah, he will, unless Ashley Beard sticks his nose up the inside and decides that he wants an even better cutback, and that's exactly what he's trying to do here. But as you mentioned, going down to Brooklands, and there's a crash with Ashley Beard, and he spears across the track. That's obviously Will Powell, who we saw earlier on, but there are drivers flying all over the place. Carl Felvers being one of them. Just falls down the order down into 11th place, and that's Ashley Beard, who's, I think Nicky Taylor was involved in that as well, as he's all of a sudden popped up in 15th position, and we saw him going sideways through Brooklands. It's unfortunate, really, for both Nicky Taylor and Carl Felvers. But Paul Zanettacci won't mind too much. I'm sure he's in 6th place and absolutely loving life. Robin Walters in 3rd, obviously the top silver driver at the moment, but not realistically in with much of a championship shout. So that is Paul Zanettacci will be loving it.
Yeah, he will indeed. Yeah, a little bit of a messy run there down that straight. We didn't exactly see what happened, but a lot of drivers involved in it. And actually, that's Scott Thorne going a little bit wide there. And there's a spinner. I believe that's Luke Weston in the BMW with the spin there. Yeah, a little bit messy. We didn't really see what happened. But a gainer from it all, I believe, is actually Paul Laramie has found his way up into P12. So actually it's a good drive by Paul Laramie in the morning. Meanwhile, Scott Bugner, P8. P8 from last on the grid.
Yeah, it's quite sensational, really, as Phil Regan falls down the order, unfortunately. As that's Carl Felvers, who somehow went down to 15th, and through all of that is now back up to, I think, 9th place. I think it was P15. He came back on the circuit. That's very well. No, actually, it was like P11, P12, actually, thinking about it. It was actually Nicky Taylor who was down into P15. He's up to P11. So still good progress being made by these silver drivers, or the top-end silver drivers, I should say, pushing their way through the rest of the field to try and claw back as many points as they can. Now, Academy usually is top 10 reverse grid, but Super Touring, Dave, is a whole new kettle of fish. We've got 18 drivers here, and it will be a top 18 reverse grid, as Ashley Beard ends up with a DNF. Now, we saw him jumping about a little bit. Maybe he's just resigned to the fact that the... it's not DNF. Now he's appearing to be carrying on, so I don't know whether his connection is causing issues.
Definitely connection there. Yeah, definitely connection. Made him disconnect and rejoin there. Luckily, it hasn't affected any other drivers around him, and he appears now to be back on a stable connection. So let's hope that doesn't cause any issues there. Phil Regan here battling heavily with Kyle Felvers, going down towards turn 1. Kyle Felvers, I would imagine, will probably open this out a little bit early, use a little bit of the runoff, and that is very well done there. Seems to have managed to keep his advantage and just ahead of Regan, and this is where he can use, just slow Regan down a little bit more and get Nicky Taylor involved with Regan, and then use that to pull away. It's all them little bits of racecraft, especially in tracks like Silverstone, where you make your job a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's a bit of a two-pronged sword for Carl, though, isn't it? Because if he does back Phil into Nicky, there's a good chance that Nicky will end up going past Phil, and championship-wise, that's bad for Kyle. So it's a little bit difficult, really, and as, by the looks of it, Nicky Taylor's making short work of it. A fantastic move, though. Faking around the inside into Brooklands and then onto the inside onto Luffield is a very, very smart, very brave, to be fair, from Nicky Taylor. And he's gotten past Phil Regan. And as I mentioned, though, for Carl Felders, he hasn't really taken full advantage of that battle. And now his championship rival is now up to just behind him into the top 10. I thought he was flying off the circuit there. That's why I had to just stumble over my words a little bit. But Nicky and Kyle throwing everything at it.
Yeah, definitely indeed. Meanwhile, we'll have a little bit look further up the grid. Jordan Brennan just starting to stretch his legs now. He's got a little bit of that gap. Don't think Fletcher is defending too hard from Robin Walters behind. He'll know Robin's quick, but he's also in a different category, so it's not going to matter massively there. Robin Walters currently P3, doing a fantastic job, showing that qualifying pace is still definitely there. Very consistent and very strong pace as well. Paul Laramie there, a newcomer to the championship in that BMW, doing a very good job there in P14, battling hard with Scott Thorne. They need to watch out because Will Powell will be coming up behind him. We saw Will Powell with early pace in that race. Meanwhile, up back, that's Nicky Taylor with a move up the inside of Kyle Felvers. And I tell you what, Phil Regan is going to have a brilliant run. And who's that on the side? Ashley Beard trying to keep out the way of these drivers, but actually he isn't. He's rejoined. Was that him coming out of the pits maybe? He's going to be right amongst this now. Kyle Felvers going to get back past Phil Regan.
Yeah, I think Ashley Beard's actually technically racing for position here, so he's doing a good job with it, to be fair, as long as his connection holds up. That's obviously what we're praying. Because when you're in a battle like this amongst other people, you are praying that everybody's connection holds up just enough so they can get around safely. Carl Felvers overtaken by Phil Regan, but he's trying to dive at the inside of Luffield, and in fact, there we go, Phil Regan does get now overtaken by Felvers. And going to T1, there was a little bit of contact there, Dave, wasn't there, between Taylor and Felvers? We can't shy away from it, but in my opinion, nothing really too bad about it, to be honest. I think Taylor had the inside line. Felvers sort of went to try and take the line. Maybe he expected Taylor to turn in a little bit quicker. But have a look here, because Robin Walters is being overtaken by Tom Dadswell as the Altitude Esports duo are now second and potentially third, although Robin Walters has put that quickly down as he slots back in ahead of Dadswell, who obviously was performing very quickly in qualifying, ended up being pipped by Robin Walters and Jordan Brennan. But we are slightly surprised not to see him a little bit further up, but I suppose that's because he's got the Volvo of Walters just ahead of him.
Yeah, you know what, I just caught out the glint of my eye there. Mark Fletcher with a slide going into that left-hander there, just lose the back end, and that's put Robin Walters right back on his tail. He had a little bit of a breather there, but I tell you what, Robin is looking mighty quick here, coming up to the halfway point of this race. I think it's looking to me like Robin's actually got a little bit of pace on Mark, and Mark's just had the bit better of a race start to get track position. I would expect Robin's going to keep pressure on the back of Mark, and Dadswell will be doing absolutely everything he can to show his nose here and there, try and get Robin to lose a little bit of time to Fletcher in front, but it will also give Dadswell the possibility of getting through. And in fact, Dadswell has. He's shown his nose up the inside of the left, going into the right. Will he manage to get the cutback slightly tighter line here? Will he manage to get the undercut and power it out? He's going to run wide there, I think, a little bit. It wasn't exactly the best of exits. Meanwhile, across the line, almost on exactly the same gap that were the lap previous.
Yeah, this is quite incredible, isn't it? We saw a lot of racing in the top 10, but as Robin Walters looks to the outside of Mark Fletcher, that's opened the door for Dadswell. Very nice, easy, thank you very much. Smith even goes through as well, and I believe Zanettacci will, because it's probably one of the most important corners that you don't want to run wide on. The Altitude Esports cars now, Dave, they'll have a bit of an issue, to be honest, because Fletcher is now behind Dadswell, because obviously Dadswell lunged them both at the inside after Fletcher made a little bit of a move. But it doesn't look like they're going to be starting to treat themselves with any kind of favour. They're racing here, not as teammates, they're racing as rivals. And there's a huge slide by Fletcher. You mentioned it a couple of laps ago, that Fletcher was getting at the back end out a little bit too much, which invited a few of the drivers to get involved in the mix. And we just saw more evidence of that just then. Smith, we're on board with him now after a stunning Oulton Park. It's not quite going his way, however, after his qualifying, he'll be very pleased if he tries to get a podium position. breaking down into Cops now. He's running over the apex very nicely. The two Answershoot eSports cars running a little bit wide, and that's why Fletcher, I think, who might well be struggling with a bit of overheating on the rear tyres here, I think, Dave, because he's really sliding all over the place as Smith goes into third.
Yeah, just the balance of his car's not looking quite right. You can tell he's not comfortable in that car. He feels nervous, I would have said, on entering the corner. This going out this left-hand is prime time where I'm on about. He goes in, he just looks like he's just being careful on the brakes. And look there yet again, the back end just starting to lose. And once you lose it once or twice, that's just going to generate that much heat in their rear tyres. And to try and bring the back end out a window is a really hard job. Rob Waltz with a fantastic exit out of the last corner, looking very, very racy indeed. And looking on the timing sheets, actually, Robin Walters has chosen the hard compound tyre, one of the only drivers to be on it. Obviously going to be sacrificing a little bit of grip there as well, but still managing to hang on to nearly a podium spot, even though he's on the harder tyre.
9 minutes to go. Maybe the hard tyres will be the ultimate choice at the end of this. Obviously, front-wheel drive, they do like to churn through their tyres quite quickly, but not normally the rear tyres, which is obviously what we're maybe suspecting for Fletcher as he runs wide through Maggots and Beckett, sorry, the exit of Beckett, and Smith couldn't get the overtake done, but here comes Robin Walters on the outside of Smith. How's this one going to play out? It's late on the brakes by Walters. Don't think he's going to get the car turned in quite enough. In fact, no, I'd tell a lie, actually. He's done really well to carry so much momentum through and into the inside of Luffield. He's got a fantastic move out on Smith there.
What a move that was. Incredibly late on the brakes. And yeah, just literally drove around the outside. So you can tell a driver who's feeling comfortable with his car has got the balance and knows what it's going to do. He has the confidence to pull them off. If you were in Mark Fletcher's car at the moment, you wouldn't feel like you could do that sort of move because you'd be thinking it's just going to break away at the nearest point. So it's definitely looking like Robin has a very, very strong race car underneath him as well as the pace. It's just whether or not he's going to be aggressive enough to actually make the move. Will he do the same move here that he did to Jack Smith the previous lap on Mark Fletcher? Let's have a look. He's going to brake round the outside. He's got to be a little bit careful. He lost the back end a little bit. That's lost him a little bit of momentum there. But I would say he's probably known, after watching Mark Fletcher 2, 3, 4 laps, he knows that's Mark Fletcher's weak corner, and if he's going to put a move on, that's his best bet.
Yeah, going towards the start-finish line then with 7.5 minutes to go. You can see Carl Felbers getting past Nicky Taylor, who I've been informed on the YouTube chat, as everybody has been, that he has apparently been very ill, been asleep for the last 3 days apparently, and so yeah, it's a bit of a shame for Nicky Taylor. That's why he's maybe struggling a little bit here, as Felbers and him don't look like they're struggling at all though. They seem to be right wide awake as they head down into Cop's corner. Felbers trying to get their undercut, to be fair. Spatial awareness-wise, judging to perfection. Speed-wise, however, Phil Regan's interested in getting involved. These two are holding each other up. You mentioned it before, Dave, about Silverstone being tricky to race on because it does hold you up so badly if you try and go 2x2, and that's exactly what these drivers are feeling here. It's exactly what Mark Fletcher is feeling up front, which is why Tom Dadswell, since getting into second place, has got a 2.5 second lead on the rest of that pack. But as Felvers looks up the inside into Brooklands and Luffield, it looks like he's got the move done. Nicky Taylor has to concede, try and get that cutback, maybe fly around the outside or even go for another cutback. It's given the VRRC grandstand at Woodcote something to cheer about though, isn't it? As the drivers fly down towards Woodcote, yet again this time Carl Felvers in the top 10 with Nicky Taylor in their lap. Yeah,
it was exactly what I was saying before, you know, the likes of Ashley Beard was not too far off the pace of these drivers here, and yet he's gone and managed to open up a big gap between Kyle and himself. So it just shows how much time you do actually lose in battling as hard as what these are. In saying that, this is exactly what you race for. You like these battles, these are what you enjoy, and it's all about trying to get past this driver. We're seeing Nicky Taylor and Kyle Felvers lapping on very, very similar lap times, and they are just, you know, fighting left and right, trying to get any sort of track position they can, and it's just meaning that every single lap, it's a change of position.
Felvers defending then into Brooklands this time round. Nicky Taylor, as we mentioned, doesn't seem to be showing any signs of being ill as Felvers goes wide. Nicky goes straight up the inside. Very opportunistic move. He's just thought, you know what, the gap's there, I'm going for it. Thank you very much. And he gets that 10th position off Kyle for the moment. Phil Regan doesn't seem to quite have the pace or the killer instinct to try and get this move done. Maybe he's just sitting there thinking, well, there's 5 minutes to go. These guys are pretty much guaranteed to take each other off at some point. As Carl goes for that undercut yet again, and there's inches in this, Dave, isn't there? The amount of time, the spatial awareness is quite incredible. Hopefully, touch wood, it carries on, because they're two very, very hot rivals on each other, really. They've been close together ever since joining the VRRC in the Clios and in the Super Touring, and anywhere else they've been, actually, in the TTs as well. So I can't wait to see how this one progresses over the next year or so. But at the moment, it's white hot, and it's a fantastic battle to behold as Nicky goes defensive into the BRDC grandstand, and it looks like Carl Felvers around the outside is pulling off his brilliant Robin Walters impression there and getting to the inside of Brooklands and driving out, but Nicky Taylor's got that cutback. They're not heading into the bits, they're going to go straight to the line, and I think Nicky Taylor's just going to have the inside for Cox, but this is absolutely brilliant.
What an absolute race this is. Absolute fantastic driving from all three drivers, showing extremely good racing respect here, giving each other just enough room. You're talking millimetres, and it's actually meaning we can't really catch up any of the action elsewhere on the grid. I notice Jack Smith is shown as just getting past who's that? Mark Fletcher and Rob Walters. So here we go. We jump down, and actually that was maybe a bad time to jump. And then Mark Fletcher with a slight bit of contact. You can see he's backed out of it to let Rob Walters get back ahead. Meanwhile, Paul Zanettacci has jumped right on this, and now he's going, you know what? I'm going to have all of this momentum change, and I'm going to have myself a P4.
Yeah, why wouldn't he? He wasn't involved in that contact as far as we could see, was he? And obviously we only cut to it right at the end, so it's a bit presumptuous to say that. But if you're thinking, oh, well, Fletcher's letting Walters back through, I'll go through as well. Why not? And there's no harm off my back. So, yeah, brilliant driving by Zanettacci. Smith has got into third place. We've already got a decent lead as well, thanks to the fact that these three keep on fighting no matter where they go. But Fletcher, it was a valiant effort, Dave, but it doesn't seem like he's really been able to hold on to it, and that's not going to help after a little bit of a push by Brad Smith, has relegated him down into 7th place. When in doubt, push him out.
Yeah, that was a bit of a weird contact. It looked like Mark's car was very erratic after the collision, so not quite sure what that was about. It looked like it was darting left to right a little bit. I think
it was just a lot of corrective oversteer, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe so. Paul Zanettacci, really the driver to really win from that scenario. Jack Smith has found himself onto that podium spot with quite a nice gap there, and it's Tom Dadswell, the teammate of Mark Fletcher in that other Altitude eSports car, that's found his way up into P2. Fantastic result for Tom here. Really found his form a little bit in the past few rounds, I think you'd agree, Jack. Maybe struggled a little bit at the start. Mark Fletcher getting the better of him seemed like each race, but Tom really starting to put his stamp on it. I tell you what, championship-wise, this is going to end up really close.
Robin Walters, who was on pole position overall, is now being attacked for a first place silver finish, isn't he? As Paul Zanettacci now got himself into that first place in silver category. Walters trying to go around the outside of him, though, and pull off the move that he pulled off on Fletcher so many laps ago. And I think he has just about not been able to do it, as Zanettacci closed the door a little late there, to be honest, and a little aggressively. He would have known that Walters is there. He's not exactly going to disappear off the face of the earth. This isn't iRacing. People don't just lag out of existence. And Zanettacci, closed the door. Walters had to sit in behind. This is Brad Smith versus Fletcher, but of course we're having a look at this one as well. So go into Cops. Zanettacci missing the apex just a touch, and there's contact, speaking of touches, with Mark Fletcher and Brad Smith yet again. This time I think the contact was made the other way round. Fletcher into Smith rather than Smith into Fletcher. But they're going to go into Maggots and Beckett's pretty much side by side as Zanettacci gets passed through on Robin Walters.
Yeah, and it looks like Ron Walters might even get a cut back again. This is a brilliant battle. We're seeing battle up and down the grid, and I can't believe I'm saying it. Look who's just out the back of shot. Scott Bugner in that Primera is nearly found his way to fight for a 4th place finish. 50 seconds left in this race, so and he's not going to actually get there unless if we see any big takeouts or anything like that. But what a fantastic drive from Bugner to find his way all the way up there to them positions.
Yeah, and it's nice to see the Primera up there. It really does sum up the Super Touring sort of category. You know why? Because it was a prime era. Anyway, Nicky Taylor and Carl Felvis battling out for the top 10 still, and there is Scott Bugner, as we said, off the back of the grid. Really pushes strong into 8th place now, and really just taking advantage and keeping it clean. That's as much as you ever need to do in any touring car race, to be honest. And you'll probably end up with a half-decent result. Felder's ahead of Taylor, but I mean, I just can't believe that either of these drivers, especially Nicky, I haven't actually heard about Carl, feeling in any kind of way under the weather, because they're battling just as hard as they ever were.
They are battling incredibly hard. I don't think you're getting away with that joke there, Jack. I'm still shaking my head. That was absolutely appalling, that was.
I enjoyed it. I made it up on the spot. I enjoyed it.
You made it up on the spot and you gave yourself a bit of a clap. But meanwhile, Jordan Brennan takes race 1 win here across the line with Tom Dadswell actually not too far back there in P2. Jack Smith crossing the line after an absolutely ridiculous battle for that P3 position. It's Robin Walters just about getting the better of Paul Zanettacci and Brad Smith, and the very sideways Mark Fletcher, basically all race coming home in P7. Bugner in P8 with a fantastic crawl from the back of the grid, and look at that, Felvis and Taylor still nothing to separate them as they cross the line. Wow, what a race that was. I don't think we saw a battle, not a battle, the whole way through that race.
Yeah, I mean, there was always something to look at, wasn't there? Which is obviously why we enjoy touring cars as a whole. It's why we enjoy Silverstone in particular. It might not be the most interesting track, but it is certainly one of the tracks that really does boost that sort of racecraft and boost the excitement all around the park as well. Really exciting. Well done to all the drivers for keeping it majority clean as well. I mean, there were incidents, there were always going to be incidents, especially as Dave called them out earlier on. And but at the end of the day, we saw no big wrecks, which is exactly what we like to see. But Dave, what we like to hear is interviews from our podium sitters.
Yeah, so we'll quickly go down our P1 in class. Silver driver Robin Walters, a fantastic first place finish there in the silver class. Maybe you were hoping for first place in the overall, but it was just seemed like a little bit of a bog off the line. That really meant you just lost that little bit of a drive in them early positions in the race.
Yeah, you've done it to me again, Dave. I didn't expect to be interviewed. I didn't realise you interviewed first place in silver. But yeah, no. For some reason, the mapping of the clutch button, because I don't have a clutch pedal, just didn't seem to work. So knew I was in trouble when the lights came on. And I hadn't practiced. So yeah, it was just because I couldn't engage the clutch.
Well, it was still a phenomenal effort there, Robin. Provided some absolutely fantastic racing. And quickly, really interesting to see you on the hard compound of tyre.
Yeah, I settled on the hard. I actually tried the medium and I just didn't get on with it for some reason. And I'd sort of done 57.2s in low fuel runs on hards, and I thought, well, that's a pretty good pace. So yeah, settled on the hards.
Well, interesting to hear. Fantastic job in a P1 in silver class. We move forward on our P3 overall, third place in gold, Jack Smith. It was a battle from the rest of the grid that really just helped bring you into the picture, and a fantastic drive and right place, right time, just so you get the gap, and brilliant opportunist move.
Yeah, no, the guys really made me work for that one, but yeah, no, the quali should have been better for me, really. I had struggled to make a quali set for this weekend, but yeah, went on the soft for quali, but just couldn't get the temps down, so I had to really slow down for that. But yeah, through the race, I worked really hard on the race set, so it did work out in the race. I managed to get some late braking opportunities, and yeah, happy with the podium.
Well, fantastic podium effort. Looking forward to seeing what you bring the race to here.
Cheers, guys.
I will move forward on our P2 finisher, Tom Dadswell, getting the better of your teammate Mark Fletcher. Really seemed to have a little bit of a better grip on the rear end of that car, dare I say. But phenomenal drive, bringing home in a P2 and not that far off the battered Brennan.
Yeah, that was a good race. I got an awful start, which gave Mark the jump, obviously. But just looked like Mark just couldn't hold on to the car. I don't know what he's done different, but he was struggling.
He was struggling a bit indeed, and as I said, not too far off the pace of Brennan. I take going this race too, it's a full reverse grid. Are we going to see maybe a slight working with Brennan to try and pull your way through this grid? Because obviously Silverstone, the times are the closest we've seen them all races.
Yeah, I think we definitely have to work together for some of the corners. Because, yeah, like you said, the times are just ridiculously close. It's going to be hard to find time.
Well, we're going to look forward to seeing what you've got from that back row of the grid. Good luck, Tom, and we might actually be speaking to you after race 2.
Great, thank you.
And Jordan Brennan, P1, it's what you needed to be doing here in the penultimate round. You must be fairly relieved once you saw you get that clear gap, break that toe and bring home a P1.
Yeah, I was struggling a bit in quali. I wasn't too far off, but it wasn't what I wanted. And I was thinking to myself on the grid, I was like, has Robin done a practice start? Because I know these are difficult to get a good start.
Yeah.
So I was like, we'll see what happens in turn 1. And luckily, he had the bad start, and we just sort of got away. But towards the end, about 6 or 7 minutes left, the front left tyre just completely died off. So we're just struggling with pace towards the end.
I take it we're not going to see a gamble going this late into the race and possibly going on that hard tyre the same as Robin?
No, I'm happy with the pace that the medium had. The overall lap time was, it seemed quicker than everyone else, but it didn't drop off as much as I thought it would, so I think we'll stick with this medium.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing what you do, Jordan. Good luck from the very, very back.
Yeah, thank you.
And there we go, Jack. So, interesting enough to hear, after about 7 minutes left of the race, that front left is really struggling, and that's maybe why we're seeing drivers just struggle to make certain overtakes that late on into the race.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't seem to hold up Carl Pelvis or Nicky Taylor, did it? Which is, as I said, quite incredible when you hear Jordan talking about that sort of thing. But these are all things that drivers have to keep in mind, isn't it? I mean, it still doesn't really explain Fletcher's rear end, to be fair, but maybe that's just a completely different issue altogether. Maybe he was having to overdrive the car because the front left wasn't going quite as you planned, but not entirely sure. But of course, a full reverse grid means that we'll be seeing quite a few other drivers getting involved. Luke Weston, Thorpe, Laramie and Sutton are the two top rows, first to fourth, and obviously Will Powell, who we unfortunately saw his race end a little bit prematurely, really, as he was getting further up the field. But we have the lights coming on our screen, and we have engine notes rising in the background, which means we're about to have a second race here in the Power Max Super Touring Championship, and with the second and final night tonight, we are racing, and it's a good start by Weston. Thorpe maybe didn't get the start he was hoping for as Laramie slots into second place. Further back, we can see Paul Zanettacci being overtaken by, I think that was Smith, but there is contact between Paul Laramie and Ashley Beard, unfortunately. Robin Walters flies up the order, and Zanettacci ends up being turned around as well.
Brennan's off.
Who was that? Brennan. It was Jordan Brennan. I had to double check there. My timing screens when he said that, Dave, but Jordan Brennan has been turned around, and unfortunately that means he's down in 16th place. Realistically, he started about 18th place, so it's not that big a deal, but the amount of time there is between first and himself now is absolutely massive. Carl Felvers in fourth, Nicky Taylor in third. Good results by them off the end of the first lap, and the safety cars brought it all to a halt.
Yes, the safety car's out. Look at that. Mark Fletcher, championship rival to Brennan, up into P5 already. So this is a big job for Brennan now. Didn't expect to see him in the gravel trap there, but a very awkward place for a crash. On the exit of turn 1, that is really one of them scenarios where it is so blind for them drivers that have started a lot further back. They come around that corner expecting to be flat. That is a very, very difficult scenario. I'm going to put my neck on the line and say, I think it wasn't Ashley Beard. I think Paul Laramie got a slight tap from another Volvo. I believe it might have been Simon Thorpe. The inside of turn 1, I think, was what initiated that spin. And obviously Paul Laramie from that point backwards at the end of turn 1, there is absolutely nothing you can really do, and an absolutely awful scenario. So yeah, thank goodness, if I'm honest, that wasn't a real life scenario, because that would have been absolutely awful.
It would have been, and thank goodness it's not the real life scenario we saw at the weekend as well. Luckily there are no lapped cars that we have to let through. Luke Weston is about to get going because the safety car is back in, the lights are off, and it means that Luke can pretty much pick and choose when he sets off, and I think he's pretty much set off already. No, he's a little bit more weaving. I thought he was already on it, but I reckon he's going to get the car nice and straight up as much as he can, giving it a little bit right hand down, and I imagine if it was me I would be gunning it right about now as he comes off the corner. But I think There we go. Luke Weston is now accelerating up into 5th gear, and Mick Sutton has been carried along with him. Not a brilliant start by Luke, probably not as good as he was maybe hoping for, as Nicky Taylor and Carl Felvis and Mark Fletcher particularly are all still 3rd, 4th and 5th, but very close to the driver ahead as Nicky Taylor goes up past Mick Sutton already, and Carl Felvis does as well. Mick Sutton having to bleed positions here. It's damage limitation as they come down into Maggott and Beckett, and Mick is all the way on the outside as Mark Fletcher goes through as well and starts to battle in the Altitude eSports car. And I believe he's up already into 5th, but Mick Sutton's keeping him honest as Nicky Taylor is looking for that race lead. He needs to get it early, because if he doesn't get it, Carl Felvis will be very interested. That's a huge send and a huge crash from Mick Sutton into the side of Nicky Taylor's car. Well, if he wasn't dizzy before, then Nicky will certainly be dizzy now as Mick rejoins the circuit, luckily, safely. Brad Smith goes up to 5th, and Dadswell fighting alongside him, but Fletcher now leads this race with Smith, Powell, Felvis and Dadswell / Smith in the top 5.
Yeah, I don't quite know what that was there, whether that was a failure or maybe a slight tap on the grass, maybe on entry, meant that he couldn't shrug his speed off of that corner. It all happened that quickly, we can't really judge what happened there, but the big news, Fletcher to P1. This is absolutely crucial with 16 minutes now left of the race. Brennan down in 9th place, so he's made good progress there. Taylor in 10th, Paul Zanettacci 11th, but it's look at Kyle Felvis as well for that silver class in P4. Fantastic job.
Yeah, so a bit of a torpedo, but we're looking at the battle for 7th position. I think just behind is Phil Regan, Dadswell and Jordan Brennan. Jordan Brennan obviously recovering somewhat from that earlier incident, as Phil Regan is currently fighting with Jordan Brennan, who really needs to just keep a nice calm head. He knows he has the pace. He also has 15.5 minutes to get through the order. Now he knows that Mark Fletcher is probably going to end up winning this race, and he knows that he probably won't be able to catch him after making him all the way through this traffic. However, that damage limitation is quite important for Jordan Brennan right now. The gap between himself and Mark in the championship is still pretty large. He'll still go into the final round leading as long as he gets around the top 5. And really, that's all he needs to worry about now with 15 to go. And anything other than 5th place, anything higher, is just sort of a bonus really for him now after recovering after that spin. Especially if Smith can maybe push it to Fletcher and maybe take that win off him.
Yeah, Fletcher's car looking a lot, I don't want to curse this, touch wood. Fletcher's car looking a lot more controlled than what it was. Back end looking a little bit more in check, which is probably not what Jack Smith wants to see. Maybe it's a case of, we called it last race, then back tyres starting to overheat, and once you've got heat in them, you can't get that temperature back out. So maybe this is good news for Fletcher, back with a car that's a little bit more under him. Will Powell here with a battle into turn 1. Kyle Felvis up the inside, that's getting a little bit nip and tuck there. And I tell you what, who's that? Brad Smith looking all over the back. He tried to go left there, but there was the Motus 1 car of Will Powell on the inside. Will Powell, a fantastic move up the inside of Kyle Felvis. Very, very opportunist there indeed. Found his way back up into P3. This is proving some fantastic race.
Yeah, I think Carl's keen to get his elbows out this round, isn't he? He's trying to make up for maybe what happened at Oulton Park. And here he goes on Will Powell as they go 3 wide into Bucklands and Luffield. And I think Carl Felvis is going to come out on top with Brad Smith getting ahead of Will Powell as well, who looks to be under attack from Scott Bugner, who's decided to get involved. So brilliant driving for the top 4 here. The fight for top 4. In fact, no, it's actually the fight for top 3. Apologies, I'm getting all my positions right, Shave. It's getting a little bit too much for me.
Yeah,
It's a bit too exciting.
You say the fight for P3, but that is going from P3, and if you look in the mirror of Will's car, that battle is going all the way back to 10th place.
Oh.
So this is basically a case of if this battle starts to kick off, you can see.
Oh, it's no longer
there it
10.
is. There it is. Who was that? That was, I believe, Brennan and Dadswell dropping back. Nicky Taylor up to P7 and Bugner into P8. So I didn't really catch who that was that got turned sideways and that caused the train. But I was just about to say, if things kick off in front, things can swap round that quickly with his grid at the moment. This is not a brilliant race for Brennan. Almost undoing a little bit of what he managed to do in race 1.
Yeah, and I said that if he gets up to 5th, anything better than that will be a bonus, but 5th is pretty much the minimum. Well, he's going all the way down back to 12th position. Speaking of 12, there's 12.5 minutes left to make up, so you never know. I mean, it's 1 minute per one place, isn't it, Dave? Doesn't sound that hard when you break it down like that, but the 1 minute, the places are quite spread out now. The advantage of potentially having an incident on lap 1 is the fact that everybody is still within touching distance. He's gone up to 11th place ahead of Thorne, who probably knows that that isn't his fight for today. But as you get further into the race, the gaps start to appear and the drivers start to disappear as we look at Bugner versus Regan.
Yeah, we do indeed. The Primera there, just with a little bit of outright speed there. Phil Regan very late on the brakes, very good commitment there into the left there. But Bugner just having to tuck back in a big flame there from that iconic centre exhaust of the Primera. It's nice to see something a bit different, isn't it? A fantastic car out there, and I can't believe when I did a bit of research, the amount of money in real life they spent developing that car for the Super Touring era. It was something stupid, Jack. It was you're talking millions per car.
Yeah, I know, and realistically, there was a lot of money flying about the sport back in those days, wasn't there, for British touring cars, and drivers would even get paid, and I can't imagine anything further from the present day, really, can you? It's quite incredible. As Smith looking to put his SmartFi car up ahead of Altitude eSports, Mark Fletcher defending hard into the last 2 corners. And unlike Robin Walters, he hasn't been able to fly around the outside and lunge into Brooklands. Smith putting all the pressure on, though, filling the rear view mirrors of Mark Fletcher, maybe just trying to force him into a mistake. We believe that Fletcher has got rid of those rear end issues, maybe took a little bit of advice in between race 1 and race 2. It seems that his car is a little bit more in order now, which will help him significantly on this defence for P1.
Yeah, it is. Jack Smith just using a little bit more of the track. Looked like he's just carrying a little bit too much overspeed into the corners there. Mark Fletcher looking very tidy, and as you say, the car a lot more settled now. Look at the back of Bugner's car. The back of Bugner's car nearly on the floor, look. Really, really hugging the floor as close as it can possibly be. That iconic rear wheel tuck into that back arch. It's such a 90s thing, isn't it? It is such a 90s touring car thing.
Yeah, you love it, really. It's one of the poster boys of that era, along with the Volvo. Maybe not the S40. I was always a fan of the 850R, to be honest. But it's I would love to see it. I would love to see a touring car championship with the 850R making an appearance. But Nicky Taylor going past Will Powell is absolutely on the money there. Got the car stopped, got the car turned, got a good exit as well. Everything you need in a good overtake.
Yeah, going back to the Volvo. I mean, you know I'm a bit of a Volvo fan. You know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that and like Civics. I know you.
I do like a good Volvo and I do like a good Honda. But yeah, that S40, a little bit more bubbles, a lovely looking car still though. But that 850, a little bit, people get a bit separated with this, but the 850R Estate was a great car and it was iconic. But for me, that 850R Saloon with that little spoiler on the boot, almost perfection for car for me. What an era of car, and if anyone hasn't seen what I'm on about, go to YouTube and listen to that 5-cylinder scream its head off, because that car was a work of art.
You're absolutely right, it was a work of art, but for some reason, and I can't really explain why, I'm a big fan of estate cars. I've got an estate car, and for some reason, I really wanted one, even though I'm so young. And my dad was like, that's an old person's car if you get an estate. I was like, no, the 850R is amazing. I couldn't afford an 850R, unfortunately, because they're so ridiculously rare and expensive these days to get a half-decent one. But, to own one of them is sort of my dream car. That and a Subaru Impreza WRX STI, which is just a chav car, but it's just something I really want. The Colin McRae sort of set sticker kit. Oh my days.
Don't get me started, Jack.
I was going to say, you're a rally fan. We could talk all day on this. There's a race to be had. Jordan Brennan goes into 9th place ahead of Phil Regan. Again, Phil having a little bit of contact with Jordan, who's just in the wars here today. He's absolutely not having it his own way in the second race. Broke potentially enough this race to actually swing the championship a little bit closer towards Fletcher, to be honest. He needs to hold on to this first place, because every position that Fletcher can get ahead of Jordan Brennan could be vital as we go toward Brands Hatch next weekend. But it looks like Phil Regan is still pushing hard.
Yeah, so Will Powell actually, Tom O'Farrell spotted very well. Will Powell on soft, so Will had brilliant pace at the start, but he will be really struggling now to keep these switched on. Brennan coming up behind for P8. He's going to go for the inside line, and if I imagine that will be about job done there. There's just enough room. You can see there's no contact. Fantastic move by Brennan. Exactly what we would have expected to see there. I'll tell you what, I'm trying to remember, Fletcher race 1, I'm fair sure finished P7. So actually, as long as Brennan can find his way the inside of Dadswell, and actually it's looking like he might even have a possible move here on Bugner, somehow, even though it's been very unfortunate, has managed to find himself in a really good fighting position.
You're right, actually. It didn't really occur to me to think about where Fletcher ended up. I just had it in my head that he was about 2nd or 3rd, because that's naturally where he always is, isn't it? But actually, it was Dadswell in 2nd place.
I think it was about P6 or P7.
He was 7th place, actually. You're right in the end. So yeah, really close to being pretty much all right for Jordan Brennan, who's now into 7th place. As we're looking on board with Dadswell, who obviously finished 2nd place, as Bugner is having to defend a little bit. Yeah, that is Bugner actually attacking on Brennan. Bugner was defending on Brennan. Brennan's just slotted from the outside back behind Bugner. You would get there in the end. Really, really tight into Beggars, but just behind, a huge crash between Regan and Powell.
Yeah, huge tap there from Regan, and actually that's let Paul Zanettacci back through. I tell you what, Paul Zanettacci, this is a battle that we haven't really focused on too much, but Kyle Felvis here, currently in P3. Meanwhile, Paul Zanettacci down in P9. So this is really damaging for Paul Zanettacci's Silver Championship there at the moment. And that was a tap Brad Smith on the back of Kyle Felvis. I tell you what, that on board, I bet that was a huge amount of lock there to keep that car straight.
Yeah, but he did it, so fair play. I mean, it is touring cars after all. A little bit of tapping is customary, but maybe not that much, and maybe track limits, maybe not that much either for Brad Smith. Nicky Taylor very interested in behind. Paul Zanettacci actually has a 28-point lead as Felvis opens the door, leaves it wide open, unlocked. Might as well leave the windows there as well as Brad Smith flies up the insides of Maggots and Beckett's. Maybe Felvis, who was taking a potential sort of qualifying line there, maybe just needs to think a racing line's a slightly different thing, because you do get those sort of things, Dave, don't you? On certain corners, on certain tracks, you can't always take the optimal line. You have to do the sensible and slightly defensive thing and just try and carry as much momentum doing it.
Yeah, something that is so easily overlooked, especially when you're feeling the pressure. You know, that is one of the biggest things of learning how to carry a good amount of speed but still not leaving that door open is so important. If you do your quali line like he's doing a bit at the moment, he's just leaving that door a little bit too open. Don't give him the chance to put your nose up the inside. In fact, Nicky Taylor might use this to actually get past Brad Smith as well.
Yeah, so just pointing out to me, obviously a big shout out to Jack Smith, who's gone from 16th to 2nd. And we have to think about driver of the day, Dave, something we tend to forget because the action has been sweeping us off our feet. Jack Smith pushing for that race victory as well. Now, we gave Jack the driver of the day last time, so we always like to try and share the love, basically, and see a little bit elsewhere. Nicky Taylor's a good shout, actually, as Tom O'Farrell just puts the camera back on him. Mainly because if he is that ill, he's been racing like he's as fit as a fiddle. And really very impressive fighting with Kyle Felvis, who obviously those two are pretty much the stars of the show in race number 1 as well, I'd say, with the amount of close proximity racing, the perfectly judged cutbacks, the spatial awareness and the momentum that both of them were having. They were fighting for P10, but that doesn't really belittle the actual quality of the fight.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really argue with that. A very good drive. Another good drive that I'm impressed with. For all the result isn't quite there, Tom Dadswell, really good performance as well. Very good race too. Very clean driving. You know, there's actually a good few drivers here that have really impressed me, that have really mixed things up here at the grid here this afternoon. Kyle Felvis doing a very good job as well. Jack Smith actually starting to battle for the overall lead here. Meanwhile, Dadswell and Bugner are battling for position. So actually, this could actually help me decide which driver I think. Dadswell on the outside. We've got Jack Smith up the inside. Sorry, this is Fletcher, and Jack Smith. A very clean move there. Dadswell. Fletcher, I will get the altitude cars right at one point. Fletcher there with a very respectful move, just tucked back in. Could have been a bit more forceful there, but he didn't. He left enough racing room. Fletcher in P2 now. Will he get the slipstream?
Oh,
That is a big bet. But actually, what's going on here? Felvis and Nicky Taylor with a spin. So we didn't quite catch that in shot. And meanwhile, that is Bugner getting through. Jordan Brennan's got through. And actually, Dadswell is all amongst this now.
well, that's a bit of a shame for Nicky Taylor. As I was saying, we didn't see what happened, but potentially it's still my shout for driver of the day. But I did like what Dadswell was doing earlier on. As he gets his rear end out now. Is he learning off Mark Fletcher? Sends it up the inside of Nicky Taylor, who opens the door just enough to be respectfully allow the Altitude eSports driver in. Sometimes you have to open the door because otherwise it's going to end in a big crash. Paul Zanettacci, who another driver I'm very impressed with, getting towards that top end podium in race number 1. I think he came 5th. Obviously pushing forward, not quite as much here in race number 2, but still been taking positive points away. Robin Walters, another shout for driver of the day, and if he wasn't so far down, or out actually, in race 2 here, down in 17th position, with that overall pole position and that race win in silver, I'd be probably shouting for him. But to be honest, race 2, obviously not really gone his way. Mark Fletcher trying to throw the outside on Smith, but Smith carrying enough momentum through mid-corner speed that he wasn't able to get the cut back on him. As they're trying to touch on the way out to Brooklands, we are into the last minute. This potentially may well be the last lap of the race.
Yeah,
No, we might have one more.
I tell you what, Mark Fletcher now is just starting to look a little bit more racy now that Smith has actually got through. Fantastic drive in this race by both of them. Look at how much they've gapped the rest of the field by. Fantastic drive. Meanwhile, Brad Smith just starting to open in the gap now from Kyle Felvis. Kyle Felvis is going to have to do everything to try and keep Brennan behind him.
Yeah, Brad Smith, a silver driver as well, actually. That I didn't realise. I thought he was gold, so I was under the impression Felvis was actually winning the silver. But no, Brad Smith is actually. So well done to Brad Smith. As there's a look at the inside, it's an ambitious look, but it has meant that Smith has missed the apex. And Fletcher may well take this race lead back from him. 20 seconds to go. It depends how much they hold each other up, but we could be on the last lap. But I think we'll be on the penultimate lap, going on to the final lap of the race by about 5 seconds as we cross the line. Smith still ahead as they go through Woodcut, ahead of Fletcher, of course. These two have been battling. Well, they've been following each other pretty much all race, but the battles are really only ignited in the previous 2 laps. Smith has been biding his time. Has he gone a touch early? Has Fletcher been given the momentum now that he is the car chasing? That is the question that will be on everybody's mind, I'm sure, as they break down into T2 and into T3. Fletcher just using that rear end to rotate the car just a touch more to try and get on the power. But actually, I think there was a bit of corrective oversteer there because Smith got on the power nice and clean and consistently. And it's going towards the final couple of corners, still with this lead and still with about a 1/10 of a second. Is late on the brakes go Fletcher, but Smith has missed the apex quite drastically and Fletcher goes for that cutback. I don't think it's going to be enough going into Brooklands for the final time as Fletcher goes, straightens the car up nice and early on the power. He runs wide though, so it will be Smith who takes this victory here at Silverstone. The smart bike car from 16th to 1st. Absolutely sensational drive. Fletcher comes home in 2nd place to put the pressure on Jordan Brennan, who actually in the end got up to 4th by the looks of it, so no pressure being put on him really at all. Brad Smith comes home in 3rd, and I think that'll mean that the silver victory will go to Brad Smith. Brennan in 4th, that's a quite stunning recovery. Nothing in that race went his way. Kyle Velvis in 5th, Tom Dadswell 6th, Bugner 7th, Nicky Taylor, Paul Zanettacci and Thorne ran out the top 10. I need to take a breath, Dave.
I tell you what, I was keeping an eye on that timing tower there because that battle between Dadswell, Nicky Taylor, Bugner, that battle was so intense there on that last lap. Cars constantly changing direction, and it looked to me, only guessing about this, that Dadswell got overtaken on the last corner and actually managed to get the undercut because he seemed to have the traction, and on the timing screen managed to get all of them just before the line. So fantastic job there by Dadswell to go from P6 to P8 and then back from P8 back to P6. So it'll be interesting to see what actually went on there, but fantastic drive by him.
Was a brilliant drive, and we all need to take a collective breath now. I've seen a couple of drivers been shouted out on the YouTube chat just while we get a couple of drivers in for the interview. Jack Smith has been given a couple of shouts for driver of the day. I would tend to go and agree with you somewhat, but we did give it to him in Oulton Park, so I feel like we need to share the love a little bit. Maybe at least one round in between giving it to the same driver. I saw Nicky Taylor as well with a shout. Brad Smith for driver of the day. Which is quite interesting, as he got third as well, winning the silver, and he was quite involved in race number 1. There did seem to be a little bit of contact, whether it's Brad's fault or not, we're not entirely sure, but there was quite a lot of contact throughout the last 2 races, so we'll have to keep an eye on that, but thank you very much for your votes. Right, Dave, you can have a chat to our drivers while I have a think about driver of the day, and we can all chat about it in our little admin chat.
Yeah, you go for that. We go to our P1 driver in silver, but not just P1 in silver. Our podium finisher, P3, Brad Smith. A fantastic effort here in the Super Touring and really impressive form tonight, getting yourself onto a final podium position.
I'm not really sure what to say because I was not expecting to be on the podium. Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, I just seem to gel with this track. I don't know why in this car, but I've done some impressive times in practice and then managed to pull it off in the race as well.
Yeah, I mean, do you think with it being Silverstone, obviously it's a track that isn't particularly technical, but I find it really demanding on racecraft. You've got to be thinking when you might have a slipstream opportunity, when's good to sit back and carry the speed, when's good to get cutbacks. Is that the sort of style that is really suiting you?
I think so, yeah, because a couple of times I got past a few people just by diving up the inside and because they were leaving the door wide open. So it's just, I think I'm an opportunist, as they call it.
I think every racing driver is an opportunist, Brad. A fantastic drive there with a P3 finish, obviously first in class as well. Fantastic drive, and we'll look forward to seeing what you can do in the final round when we go to the big track of Brands Hatch.
Thank you very much.
And move forward on our P2 finisher, Mark Fletcher. Only just, but just not quite enough there to hold it on all the way to the line to hold Jack Smith off.
Yeah, mate, that was a great race. That was. I thought I had it when the gap got up to a second, and then the rear end just stepped out. I don't know why it's doing it. I seem to struggle a bit this evening. Probably lack of practice, but yeah, amazing racing. To be fair, in both races, I just felt I was going backwards in the first one, but yeah, got a bit lucky with the first lap. But yeah, you'll take those races for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually going to quickly ask you regarding the back end. It just, obviously, your mind, Dadswell must be running a very similar setup, I would have thought, with you being obviously on the same team. You just seem to have a little bit more rotation under the brakes, and you could tell you just didn't have that confidence to really attack the car into the corners, did you? Which meant, obviously, it meant you were getting lunged, and then there wasn't really much you could do about it.
Yeah, in the first race I ran my pretty much base Oulton Park setup, just with a little few sort of tweaks. It was really good in the practice that I did, but then yeah, I swapped to Tom's setups in the second one, and yeah, it was a lot better. But there's something still going on with the back end of the car. We need to look at that, especially for brands, because you can't be going in backwards into brands.
Just put a new back axle in it solves everything. Well, fantastic race there, Mark. A brilliant P2 finish, and this championship is going to go down the line. Let's see what you've got for brands.
Cheers, thanks Dave. Good to speak to you.
I'll move forward onto our P1 finisher, Jack Smith. You made it into the comms box yet again. I mean, it can't be any better for the Smart 5 car, can it?
It can't, no. Can I just say, I swear Mark's car must be wider than the rest of them, because that first battle I had with him, it was just so hard to pass him. So that's probably some of the best pieces of racing I've ever had in sim racing so far. But yeah, you guys should probably get me a little corner in your comms box, because I feel like I'm sort of invading. But yeah, I'm so happy to get the Smartify car right up here, winning races in the last 2 rounds. It's been quality. Really enjoyed it. And quality props to Mark there, because that was some insane racing.
It definitely looks like you're finding some form, and that's what we like to give to the people that race in VRRC. That sort of race that puts a smile on your face is exactly what we're trying to achieve. So fantastic racing out there, Jack. Obviously, it takes 2 to tango. Mark, obviously very respectful racing, but yourself must have also been playing an equal role in that to make such a great spectacle on screen as well. So fantastic race tonight, a brilliant P1, and let's see what you can do at Brands. Let's see what happens in qualifying.
Cheers, guys.
And there we go, Jack. All of our positions done and interviewed. And I tell you what, I've still got no thoughts for driver of the day.
I was going to say, I think, to be honest, it's a very split decision all across online and our admin as well. So I'm going to go ahead and give it to Nicky Taylor, just because I felt very ill the past couple of weeks, and I can't imagine fighting the way he has out there on track today. And yeah, it's a really sort of big thing, I suppose, because he was, as I said, thoroughly in the fight, and from what we saw, Dave, it's pretty much all very clean as well. So that's another sort of bit of criteria we'd like to look out for, isn't it? So I'm going to give it to Nicky Taylor if there's no complaints from you.
Oh, there's no complaints from me. Nicky Taylor, definitely a very, very good driver tonight, proving it in the positions, and from all the racing we saw, it takes some quality of driving to race. You're not just talking 1 or 2 laps. That first race must have been, what, 8-9 minutes worth, Jack, of about an inch close to the back of Kyle Felvers, swapping positions lap after lap without any form of contact. That takes some serious judgment on your car placement where you are. Never mind doing it when Phil Regan's an inch off your bumper, also trying to get past both of you. So, in my mind, yeah, calling Nicky Taylor for driver of the day, very good job, good decision.
Yeah, and a big shout out, a special mention to Scott Bugner, who of course didn't qualify and yet ended up coming in 2 top 10 positions. So big shout out to him. I did see that Sean Bugner has just put that in the YouTube chat.
Yeah, very good.
It's a good shout. It's a good shout. We'll give it to Nicky, but it's a good shout. Well done to Scott. Anyway, we're going to having a look at the championship as it stands. 184 points is now the tally that everybody else has to beat for the gold category. That's held by Jordan Brennan. Mark Fletcher may have got 1 or 2. In fact, no, I think he's actually increased the margin between Brennan and Fletcher now, actually, because of the results, how they fell today. Dadswell did a good job today, to be fair, as well. He was a strong driver today. Still in 4th position in the championship, with Scott Bugner ended up in 4th, probably a bit closer to Dadswell than anybody else is really as close. Beard in 5th, ended up having a bit of connection issues, unfortunately, for Ashley Beard, and that really hampered his progress. Smith in 6th. But if we follow down to the silver category, we can also see that Paul Zanettacci is still the man to be caught, and if anything, he's just maintained that margin. 173 points with Carl Felvers, 151. So there may have been a small decrease in the gap, but not an awful lot. Nicky Taylor is still 3rd with 132, but if you have a look at the gap between himself and Paul Zanettacci, that's pretty massive, to be honest. That's probably not going to be swung as we go towards Brands Hatch. Thorne in 4th and Regan in 5th as well. And a few of those really close battles have started to just eke out as we go towards Brands Hatch. But there's still all to race for, and we're very much looking forward to it. And Dave, just before we start the sign-off, is there anything you'd like to say about Silverstone and what you're looking forward to next week?
Yeah, I mean, Silverstone didn't disappoint. It was pretty much exactly how I thought it was going to go. Lap after lap of battle with Slipstream is always the common theme with Silverstone, and it's exactly provided. I was impressed with how clean it was. There was that massive crash at the start of race 2, which was very, very unfortunate, but luckily the safety car was called, regrouped everything, and from then on was absolutely fantastic to see. So yeah, really, really good racing. The championship is still close. It can swing all ways for both silver and gold category. A lot of points still on offer, and what better track to go to than Brands GP?
You're absolutely right. And just before we sign off, we're going to give Rich Hayden an opportunity to have a chat about what's coming up and the new championships that have just been announced on VRRC. I reckon you've got about 45 seconds, Rich. What are the new championships coming to us?
Firstly, are you okay with the way I managed that safety car period?
Oh, we're all okay. We're all okay. Michael Massey's been not mentioned once.
No, I heard. Okay, let's just focus on the next one that's due up. So 11th of January, Tuesday nights, the championship replacing this one is the MX5 Cup. 2 driver classes again, gold and silver. 6 rounds, 12 races. We start at Laguna Seca, a fantastic track for this car. Then we go to Donington National, Brands Hatch GP, Vallelunga, a Red Bull Ring, the national layout, and then we go to Virginia in the US, the full course. So really looking forward to that. Some great prizes as well. So we've got prizes for first, second and third for both classes, so gold and silver class. First prize is a set of £1,300 OPP eSports hydraulic pedals. Second prize is a Aegon by AOC 34-inch curved gaming display. And the third prize is 2 times VIP tickets to a British GT round in 2022. And driver of the round gets an AOC gaming mouse for each round as well. Yeah. So really looking forward to the MX5 Cup. We've also got, I said I'll only do one, I'm going to do a second one. We've also got Touring Car Trophy starting in January as well, middle of January. Can't wait for that. The first prize in both classes, because we're gold and silver class, is a test in a TCR car. So awesome prize. People are losing their minds about that prize as well. So really looking forward to that championship too.
Well, Maximum Motorsport is very much linked to the championship, aren't they? This is the full Touring Car Trophy Championship, the official eSport championship.
Oh yeah. This is official Touring Car Trophy. Drivers from the real championship, from TCR UK, obviously sim racers, drivers from other championships as well. So a big, huge thanks to Maximum Motorsport trusting us to run that for them, and obviously thanks to Stuart Lyons as well for who runs Maximum Networks and Maximum Motorsport and TCR UK for giving it to us as well, and also donating that fantastic prize, a test in a TCR car. Fantastic.
And just before we go, if they wanted to get involved or have a look at the details to enter and all that sort of thing, is it a case of getting on the Facebook and where are the details basically?
So go on Facebook, Virtual Reality Racing Club Facebook page. Pretty much most posts we put on there, we put the link to join our Discord channel on that post. So just follow that link.
It's also in the description apparently that Tom O'Farrell's just put in.
It's also in the description. Join Discord, come and say hello, don't be shy. Ask questions. There's a lot of information in channels of how you can get racing with us, but do not be shy, say hello, and there's lots of good people in the community there that'll answer you.
Absolutely, and we will do a full rundown of everything we've got planned for the new year next week in the finale of the touring, Super Touring as well. Don't really have enough time to do it, but we'll try and fit it in before we head into qualifying and everything like that next week. Does that sound good?
All good.
Brilliant. Well, a big thank you from me and to my co-host as well, Dave Marshall, for joining me this evening, as he usually does. This has been a fantastic round, the penultimate round of the Super Touring Championship here at Silverstone. My name has been Jack Oliphant. As I've just mentioned, I've been joined alongside me by Dave Marshall. We've had Tom O'Farrell on the broadcast, as usual, doing a stellar job. You can join us next week for the finale around Brands Hatch on the Powermax Super Touring Championship. And then, of course, in the new year for all the new and exciting championships we've got coming up. We'll see you next week. Good night.
Play the tail down.
The inside of Coates.
Park gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.